Your noble blood.
Don't take her blood, her beauty, her youth.
Pleasures me. Fuels me. You came to serve me. Single question.
Spoiler warning. Lore Mirror ending isn't just shocking, it's a lie. Buckle up because this breakdown will rewrite everything you thought you knew. The film opens with a horrifying scene. A girl is tied upside down on a table, her feet trembling uncontrollably. She tries to scream, but no sound comes out. Her mouth has been injured. Her body is covered with deep wounds, which two people are stitching, not for healing, but as a method of torture. One person stitches the wounds shut, while the other cruelly reopens them and jabs her repeatedly with a needle, inflicting relentless pain. The story then shifts to the year 1609, during the reign of Elizabeth Bathory in the Kingdom of Hungary. Her beauty, bravery, and legendary status were admired across the land. Young girls idolized her, especially those lucky enough to be chosen to serve in her castle. One such girl, Lady Margaret, is selected as Elizabeth's assistant, which is seen as a tremendous honor by her family. Though Margaret comes from a royal lineage, her family has fallen on hard times financially. Elizabeth's trusted maid, Ava, personally escorts her from her home. Margaret is thrilled, even more so when Elizabeth herself greets her upon arrival. Overwhelmed by excitement, Margaret didn't notice the unsettling atmosphere in the castle. The other maids seem terrified, and a chilling silence hangs over the place, while one maid accidentally drops her basket and panics. Ava joins her frantically in picking up the items. In the process, Ava cuts herself on something sharp. Elizabeth then takes Margaret's hand and warmly leads her inside. Margaret was still in awe. This was the same queen she had grown up hearing tales about, now treating her like a special guest. Despite Margaret's role being that of a servant, Elizabeth shares the history of the castle, a gift from her late husband. She was just 11 when she married him, an incredibly beautiful young girl, and he was the bravest warrior in Hungary. Their love was legendary, but tragedy struck when the king suddenly fell ill and died. Elizabeth becomes emotional recounting this, prompting Ava to take Margaret to her room. That Margaret's quarters are lavish, yet Ava avoids answering her questions. Margaret tries to break the ice, telling Ava she does all the work at her own home like a maid. Ava insists they're not the same. Margaret has royal blood, while she does not. Their social divide, in Ava's mind, makes friendship impossible. Thus still, Margaret praises Elizabeth's kindness and hospitality, but Ava's expression turns grim. She leaves without a word. Later, we see Ava speaking with Elizabeth about Margaret. Elizabeth is pleased that Margaret is of noble and pure blood, suggesting there's a deeper reason this matters, a secret that will soon be revealed. Ava then applies red blusher to the queen's face. But when she runs out of the product, she hesitantly informs Elizabeth. The queen is visibly angry and reminds Ava that maintaining the supply is her responsibility. Trembling with fear, Ava cuts her hand and uses her blood as a substitute. This shocking act reveals that the queen's makeup, especially the red pigment, is made from blood. That this grotesque ritual is nothing new to them. Elizabeth even applies the blood to her lips as if it were lipstick. Later, during dinner, Margaret is stunned by the extravagant feast. Her family barely has enough to eat, and her sisters were sent to a convent to reduce expenses. Elizabeth instructs her to consume plenty of fruit and honey, claiming they help purify the blood. That when a maid brings honey to Margaret, she notices deep wounds on the maid's hand. Asked about them, the maid nervously claims they came from working in the kitchen. Margaret is confused, but before she can think further, Elizabeth summons her wild-looking dogs. Their aggressive behavior frightens not only Margaret but all the maids. Yet the queen forces everyone to feed them by hand. Margaret remains blissfully unaware of the horrors around her. She still wants to befriend Ava, but Ava insists that they cannot be equals. That night, Margaret hears crying sounds. When she asks Ava, she brushes it off as the wind howling through the mountaintop. But Margaret is suspicious and investigates. only to be stopped by guards at a terrace door where the sound originated. Meanwhile, on the other side of the terrace, a gruesome scene unfolds. A girl, covered in honey, is chained and attacked by savage dogs while the queen watches gleefully from above. It becomes evident that the queen finds pleasure in such torture. The earlier torture scene, too, was orchestrated by Elizabeth and Ava, who are both equally responsible for these brutal acts. It becomes increasingly clear that Margaret has been brought to the castle for a sinister purpose. Still oblivious, she begins caring for Ava, especially after seeing several septic wounds on her hands. Margaret urges her to see a doctor, but Ava says nothing. She knows Elizabeth would never allow it. Margaret, naive to the queen's true nature, begs Elizabeth to let Ava seek treatment. The queen pretends to be kind and agrees. That Margaret begins noticing something eerie. All the maids have serious injuries on their hands or feet. She questions Ava about it, but Ava remains silent. Despite this, the two grow closer, and Ava begins to consider betraying the queen to save Margaret. When Elizabeth demands that Margaret be brought to her, Ava panics. Knowing what fate awaits her desperately, Ava pleads with the queen not to harm Margaret. She argues that Margaret comes from a known royal family, and any harm to her would raise suspicion. Elizabeth coldly reminds Ava that she was the one who started all of this in the first place. A flashback reveals the queen's descent into madness. After her husband's death, she fell into depression, her beauty fading with her grief. Ava nursed her back to health, but her beauty was gone. One day, when Ava accidentally tugged her hair, Elizabeth attacked her in a rage. Blood spilled on the queen's face, and upon seeing her reflection, she believed the blood restored her glow. From that moment on, she became obsessed with using blood to regain her youth. Ava, bound by fear and loyalty, began torturing girls to collect the blood Elizabeth craved. The queen's beauty returned, but at a terrible price. Believing that tortured blood worked best, Elizabeth developed a gruesome hobby, experimenting with new ways to inflict suffering. Ava was now trapped in this nightmare. Though she wanted to save Margaret, Elizabeth had already ordered her captured. Protect Margaret. Ava confesses everything. She urges her to escape and go to the police. Margaret is horrified and doesn't believe her. Instead of listening, she runs, only to end up in the queen's chamber, where Elizabeth was waiting to begin her twisted ritual. Elizabeth captures Margaret, and in a desperate act, Ava sacrifices herself in an attempt to protect her. But it's too late. The queen tortures both of them. Ava is killed, not for her blood, but for entertainment. Margaret meets the same fate, her blood used to beautify the queen once more. Unbeknownst to Elizabeth, one girl managed to escape. Just like Margaret, she had been brought to the castle, but upon discovering the dark secret, she stole Elizabeth's diary and fled. This diary contained the names of every girl the queen had murdered. The police arrested Elizabeth, and the world learned the horrifying truth. As punishment, she was sealed inside her room, with food passed through a small hatch. Yet even in isolation, Elizabeth continued her obsession, now using her blood to maintain her beauty. She inflicted pain on herself, believing she would soon reunite with her husband in death, and wanting to look beautiful for him. Years passed, and eventually, Elizabeth was found dead in her room. No one knows exactly how she died, but history remembers her clearly. Elizabeth Bathory of 1609 is remembered as one of the most brutal women in history, responsible for countless murders, all in the name of eternal beauty. Think you could survive? Movie name. This world? Tag a friend who'd fail miserably. Don't forget to subscribe, unless you're scared of the truth. Thanks for watching.